Welcome to the regular meeting of the Cape Coral City Council. Today is February 1st, 2023. This meeting now comes to order. Please stand for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Cummings.
It's an honor for me to lead today, and I would like to begin this meeting with the Bible scripture. Matthew 12:25. And Jesus knew their thoughts and said unto them, Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, Your Honor. Before I call the roll, I would like to announce that Councilmember Cosden has asked to be excused, and I will mark her so. Mayor Gunter?
Here.
Councilmembers Cummings?
Here.
Hayden? Long?
Here.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Here.
Welsh?
Here.
7 present, 1 excused.
Thank you. Item 5 is changes to the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda, or do we have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
Motion to adopt. Second.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Item 8 is citizens' input time. A maximum of 60 minutes is set for the input of citizens on matters concerning city government, 3 minutes per individual. Please remember to state your name for the record. We will be utilizing the podium to my left, your right. Anyone who wishes to participate in citizens' input, there is a 3-minute clock in front of me that you can reference while you are speaking. If anyone would like to speak, please come forward.
Good evening. Am I using the right microphone? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Hi, I'm Stephen Averback, a resident of the Yacht Club, and represent a group of about 1,000 folks.
I didn't hear you, sir. Did you state your name?
My name is Stephen Averback,
Thank you.
a resident of the Yacht Club. I represent about 1,000 families, part of a group called Cape Coral Save Our Community. Our group is very concerned about the articles that surfaced in the Breeze and the news press this weekend, calling for the elimination of our tennis courts at the Yacht Club. As you know, a series of meetings was conducted with the council, Kimberly Horn, and the community to solicit input as to what the community wanted to see at the revitalized Yacht Club. As a surprise, the number one amenity that the community wanted to keep was the tennis courts at the Yacht Club. The pulse of the community was taken by vote, where people were able to place dots on the amenities that were desired. Kimberly Horn representatives captured this input and revised the master plan to include 4 tennis courts, and this is the plan on record that the community had agreed to. Recently, we had an election, and some new council members are in the mix, but several council members and our mayor attended these meetings, these input meetings, along with hundreds of residents. I want to remind you that the mayor and council work for the residents, and it's not the other way around. To completely disregard the input of hundreds of residents would be a serious mistake. We ask that you consider keeping the commitments and agreements that were made in good faith and keep our 4 tennis courts in the Yacht Club. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Jim Fox, 124 Southwest 54th Terrace. I've owned a home here in Cape Coral since '91, paid well over $100,000 in taxes, so I'd like to make a couple of comments. My wife plays tennis 8 days a week. We live here to play tennis. We got used to being at the Yacht Club. I thought this matter was resolved a year ago, 2 years ago, in the middle of this Go Bond mess with all of the meetings down at the harbor, where the city agreed that the clubs, the courts were going to stay. Now we're reading that there's discussion that there may not. Is that true or not? Can anybody answer that question? Is the council considering doing away with that agreement?
Sir, just go ahead and make your comments. We don't engage in a conversation
All right.
after the fact.
If that's the case, we'd be extremely disappointed by that. There was, the meetings were well organized, there was all kinds of input, they were attended by hundreds of people, several meetings. I spoke to you, Mr. Mayor, several times about the subject. It was clear to me that someone in this building has a prejudice against the courts. I personally spoke to high members of the Park and Recs Department. The first thing that she said to me is, "You're wasting your time because the tennis courts are gone." So we've been fighting a prejudice on this right from the very get-go. But the city made an agreement that the courts were going to stay. And we expect you to honor that. I've got several friends that have bought homes in the area, built homes in the area because the tennis courts are at the yacht club. That's not fair to them to renege on that agreement. To play now, we have to drive 45 minutes through traffic to go to Hancock Bridge Parkway over in Fort Myers. The courts, another thing, the courts have been sitting with a little mud on them for 4 months. Every other court in the city of Fort Myers and Cape Coral has been cleared and played at the private courts, the public courts. The yacht club sits there being unused. You could take the padlock off the gate, have the fire trucks go there for an hour and hose off the courts, and we could use them. For some reason, you're against tennis at the Cape Coral Yacht Club. We don't know why. All we do is pay our taxes and we want to enjoy it. Don't renege on your agreement, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Gail Hawthorne. I've lived in Cape Coral since 1972. I probably have beat all of you for the amount of time I've lived in the city. Growing up here and raising my family here, I also feel that the Yacht Club is a extremely diverse park, and I'd like to see that it's kept that way. I think that all of the activities there that we offer have an amazing impact throughout the community with different genres, let's say, from the elderly to the children. So the tennis courts also are close to home for me. I would like to see them continue to be utilized there. That's one thing that the city of Cape Coral can provide to toddlers, to those in their 90s. I've seen kids out there that can barely walk swinging rackets, and I've played tennis with women 30 or 40 years plus my age. So I really hope that you will consider keeping the tennis courts as was originally planned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Rose Santiago Averback. I live in the Yacht Club, and I've attended all of these meetings that we are speaking about. And one of the things that concerns me at the present time is I have to drive 9 miles out to the parks in order to play tennis, which is an inconvenience for me. When I moved to Cape Coral to play tennis up the street, basically less than a mile away from my home. The other thing that concerns me is that we're playing in some of the city, they're not city parks, they're, I guess, county parks. And some of these parks pose a danger to us women because a lot of them do not have locks on their bathrooms. They're kind of in areas that are kind of secluded. So we have to ask someone else to go to the bathrooms with us because I feel, just to give you an example, I was at Judd Park for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and as I'm walking to the bathroom, there's like a doggy park, and in this doggy park, there's numerous drug addicts there, and the bathrooms are close to this doggy park. That doggy park poses a threat to us women, not because of the doggy park, but because of the type of people that are there, and there aren't even any locks on the bathrooms. The same thing when we go to Hancock. Hancock, there aren't any bathrooms there, so we have to find a place to go. These are concerns that I have when we have courts right up the street. I understand that the whole place, the yacht club was destroyed, the buildings were destroyed, and that you may have to take some of those buildings down or take them all down. But the reality is that our tennis courts are not buildings, they're simply courts, and we want to maintain them there in our community park. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during citizens' input, please come forward.
Hi, council members. My name is Kelly Savitan. The results are in, and Cape Coral just landed the number 4 spot on the best places to live in Florida in 2023. Forbes Advisor recently released this guide to the best places in the Sunshine State. In ranking the city in the number 4 spot, Forbes pointed out Cape Coral's popularity in terms of its sandy beaches, as well as its canals and freshwater lakes. Cape Coral was incorporated as a city in 1970, and it has been steadily grown over the years. It's perhaps best known today for its more than 400 miles of canals, its scenic beaches, its outdoor recreation, and its waterfront homes and lifestyle possibilities. I'm here today to tell you that I am a Cape Coral resident that enjoys its beaches, its 400 miles of canals, and its waterfront lakes. As a resident, I own a boat and a trailer. I'm not the only boat owner in Cape Coral. There are 50,304 boats registered in Lee County. Based on Cape Coral's steady growth over the years, I'm requesting that you modify the Cape Coral Code, specifically Article 6, Chapter 2, Section 6.2.6, boats and boat trailers. Currently, boats and trailers cannot be stored in front of or the side yard of a single-family residence. I am requesting that you change the ordinance to allow boats and trailers to be parked on the side yard of a single-family residence. Many times, there is no room to park in the backyard due to its size, or it's difficult to maneuver the boat and trailer to the backyard due to your neighbor putting up a fence or bushes or trees on the property line. Or there are obstacles in the way, such as air conditioners, pool heaters, pool pumps, and/or lanais that make it difficult or impossible to store the boat and the trailer in the backyard. Or the backyard declines to a canal. I don't understand why single-family owners are not given the option or the right as a property owner to park their boat and trailer on the side of their home. Cape Coral is a boating community. Don't stifle the boating enthusiasts, the boat owners, and future residents of Cape Coral by restricting boat and boat trailer storage placement to the backyard only. I'm interested in speaking with someone or meeting with someone to continue this discussion. I would also like you to please provide me with updates. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak during citizens' input, please come forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Jane Smith, Cape Coral resident. I would like to also address the changes at the yacht club. As previously stated by others, we had numerous hearings on this. My major interest is the fact that we have working families. Cape Coral is a bedroom community for many. We need to ensure that our parks and areas like the yacht club remain accessible, not just to tourists, not just to those who have a large amount of disposable income, but to all of our families. Having something like a tennis court is healthy. It's excellent free recreation for all ages. It is part of the draw to the yacht club area. In addition to that, we do not have a facility like that or services like that in that area of the Cape. Again, we need to think of our community as a whole, all the age groups, what would best fit their needs in an economical way. And that area of Cape Coral needs facilities like that. I understand we have a beautiful new Racquet Center going up at Lake Kennedy, but that isn't accessible for everyone. And I think the council needs to keep previous input and promises in mind, as well as what is best for us as a whole.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak? Please come forward. Seeing none, citizen input is now closed, and I'll open it up for council discussion on any citizens' input. Councilmember Welsh.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a woman who just spoke, not last, but before, about boating and trailers and keeping your boats near your house. I just recently received a second from this council to work on that ordinance. So if you would, please reach out to the council office and speak with me. I'm Robert Welsh, District 5. You're the exact input that I want. So I can take that information on what you're looking for and sit with the city attorney and see if we could change this ordinance. I do believe that we can't also exclude other recreations. It can't just be a boat. I think we should allow like travel trailers or things like that. So what I'm trying to do is, at this point, it took me over a year and a half to get a second to actually bring this up because it was brought up before I was on council and decided upon. So what I don't want to do is rush through this, but I don't want to forget what everyone has to. So please reach out to my office and speak with me. We'll set up a time to talk about what you think is going to be good for the city, because when I come forward with this, hopefully later this year, this isn't going to be a fix this problem tomorrow. I think this is going to be something that we really need to make sure is going to set the city in the future. I want to at least have input from the citizens, so I'm glad you came forward today. As far as the tennis courts at the yacht club, what we talked about last week was a retreat, which was ideas. One thing that was missed, there's also ideas of moving the tennis courts to Veterans Park, which is just off Coronado, which is very close to the yacht club. And the reason why we were looking at that was the fact of parking and available parking for the yacht club now that we have to rebuild. So we weren't taking the tennis courts out. We were just looking at what was out there or what other options might be. So it could be that instead of having to drive to the new tennis center off of Santa Barbara, it might just be riding up the road on Coronado. So it's not like we're none of that has ever or even been voted on yet. So it was entertaining ideas and seeing, because of the unique situation where the buildings there are now past that FEMA 50% rule, that we just want to entertain what is best for the city. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you, Mayor. I also just wanted to respond as it relates to the yacht club, being your council person for District 1 and the yacht club being in District 1. Obviously, I'm interested in your feedback and will play an integral role in the decisions that are made forthwith. We had quite a reset with Hurricane Ian. It's been said that the best way to arrange your garage is to take everything out of the garage and then put it all back in exactly the way you want it. Hurricane Ian has given us a position where, to some degree, all of the stuff is out of the garage. And so decisions have to be made with how to put everything back in the garage and where to put it. Councilmember Welsh mentioned all that we dealt with at the retreat was preliminary concepts, and that's what has been sent back. I am a former tournament tennis player, 4.0. Anybody that's 3.0 or higher, I wouldn't play you today. But I'm sensitive to the courts there. I made mention to that during the retreat. And as we progress with the design, what's going to be included, what's not going to be included, tennis courts will still be on my mind as far as discussing that in the design. So your feedback is appreciated. It is true that as we look at the entire city, to move some of the pieces around to meet the ever-growing needs of the city and where the population is, and to meet the demographic changes that we've had in the city over the last 15, 20 years. Sometimes moving pieces of the puzzle isn't a bad thing, but the jury is still out right now. Those decisions have not been formally made. And so your feedback is heard, and your feedback will certainly be represented in the discussions as we continue on with the design. And you can count on me to keep those in the conversation.
Thank you. Please keep your applause to yourself, Councilmember Cummings.
I was going to pretty much just say what Councilman Steinke had stated. To follow up with him, we are definitely, I know I've received a lot of Facebook messages from people talking about the tennis courts, and we understand that this is your area and this is what you like to do with your amenity, and I'm definitely in support, and we can get creative next time around. I was even thinking in my mind, how can we keep these tennis courts there? And of course, all of us have to be part of this, but you could put tennis courts on top of the garage, which would be a spectacular view. So there's many different things in different ways that we can get creative and how we can save these tennis courts. So just so you know, we all know how important this is to all the residents in Councilman Steinke's district, and I'm in support with whatever the desire is and keeping my mind open for all of you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and I'll also just weigh in briefly. I agree with my colleagues. We're just starting down this path, but I want to mention one thing as far as not having accessibility to the tennis courts now, and most residents don't realize this. When it comes to FEMA reimbursements, we have to come in, do an evaluation. We had to do that at the yacht club. We not only had to do assessments of the grounds, but structural engineers in there with the buildings. And before we are allowed to get any reimbursement, FEMA has to come back in after we provide a document to them, a report on the damage. And we had just recently got that finalized and had submitted it to FEMA. Now they have the opportunity, they have to come in, review the damage, review our report before they will approve any repairs. And the park or any other area in the city has to stay in the condition that it is now. So that's why the park is closed. There are some safety issues with the park that are present there now, so that's a concern. Also, I don't know if you've been down there recently. I know I was down there about a week ago. They're using that particular location for a mobilization point. We're bringing in boats off of the shore, and they're actually using a excavator and demolishing the boats and hauling them out. So we're using that facility for that. There will come a point in time here in the near future that once FEMA gets in there and evaluates the condition of the space and reviews our report, then we will have to have a discussion collectively. How do we move forward from here? Do we open just a portion of the park? Do we open the whole park? And those conversations will have to be made here in the near future. So I just want to assure you, it's just not the tennis courts, it's also the boat ramps, it's also the beach, it's also the restaurant that's down there, the tennis courts, the racquetball courts. So all of that is closed. So I don't want you to feel that you're singled out. Once we get to the point where we can get it open to the public, I'm sure we will try to do that as soon as we can and as safe as we can. So I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on that. So thank you. With that being said, I don't see any other discussions. We will move on to item 9, which is business. 9A is consent agenda. I will now open the consent agenda for council to pull any items for discussion, or is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Motion to approve.
Madam City Attorney.
Thank you. As the council can see, there is a revised waiver of conflict, of interest as your A2 item under the consent. I just wanted to clarify that Mr. Aiken did sign off on that. However, I also want to clarify, just for future reference of council, that The reason this didn't have 2 signatures the last time was not, and nobody overlooked that. It's that this is not an agreement with Mr. Aiken and his firm. This is you agreeing that you're waiving any conflict of interest he might have. The only time Mr. Aiken is going to be producing something like this in the future, and he'll be the one really producing it, is if somebody's filing a bar complaint against him or an ethics complaint saying you've had a conflict of interest here, okay? And then he would say, here's my waiver of conflict of interest by the city. So I just wanted to clarify that for you, because even though we've made that change, it's not necessarily a necessary change, but we did it in order to make council feel better and more secure in what it was doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cummings,
On the consent agenda, approving the consent agenda.
Right, we're voting on either keeping the attorney that we're using.
No, it's the whole consent agenda.
Oh, I
item, which
apologize.
was
Okay.
items 1 and 2.
Okay. Aye.
Gunter,
Aye.
Hayden. Long. Shepherd. Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Item 9B is appointments to boards and committees. We do not have any listed tonight. 9C is unfinished business. There's none listed. Does council have any follow-up items?
No, sir.
Seeing none, we'll move on to item 9D, new business. D1 is Resolution 32-23, which is approval of the 2023 state legislative priorities. Madam Assistant City Manager.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Item D1 was discussed at your retreat. Maureen gave her presentation at that time. We probably could have moved this to the consent agenda rather than new business, but we had not intended on making another presentation since we had provided that to council at the retreat. So we would just ask if the council could go ahead and move forward with this.
Okay, yeah, I know that was a topic of discussion here last week with our retreat. I think it's pretty clear-cut what our 2023 state legislative priorities are. Council have any discussion? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 3223?
Motion to approve 3223.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cummings,
Aye.
Gunter.
Aye.
Hayden.
Aye.
Long. Shepherd. Steinke.
Aye.
Welsh.
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, item 2 is selection of outside counsel for Waste Pro litigation. As council is aware, we all had individual meetings with our city attorney here in the last week or so regarding this topic. We have 2 particular law firms that are listed, and I will turn that over to our Madam City Attorney to give us those law firms. And if you would, could you tell us the one that we retained previously, just to refresh our memories?
So this evening, there are 2 engagement letters before you for 2 different firms. The first firm is the Shoemaker firm, which around here is based out of Sarasota, and they are the firm that handled the Waste Pro litigation the last time that we were sued by Waste Pro. Their engagement letter that they have before you is the same one they had, I guess about a year and a half ago when the council originally retained them, and they are still agreeable to working for the city under those same terms. The other firm is the Sheffy Pasadomo firm, which you also have their engagement letter, and they are also a very able firm. They are based out of Naples, and if this is before you tonight for the council to select the firm that you want to move forward with, representing the city in, we'll call it Waste Pro 2, but it's the current litigation that Waste Pro filed against the city, I think early in January.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Long.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I had actually had a discussion with the city attorney about the opportunity to potentially see if there was anybody else that we could engage for this litigation. Having the background that she just provided, we currently have an engagement agreement with the firm that helped us with the last litigation with Waste Pro. My personal and professional opinion was that their performance in that was not up to par. And to that extent, I've asked that we've explored other options. With that being said, I've interviewed with the individual at Sheffy Pasadomo, and it would be my recommendation to move forward with engaging them for the current litigation. I will, however, let you guys know, in case there's any concerns with regards to the continuation of the litigation as it pertains to the current firm that we have on retainer. I'm not certain that there will be any issues with regards to continuity of services or historical background knowledge of any prior litigation or suits. I don't think, again, with my professional opinion, that plays too much of a role in this. As attorneys, they typically are concerned with the four corners of the complaint, so to speak. We hear that a lot in the profession, and so this complaint is, in essence, a completely separate action than it was previously. So for those of you that may be apportioning a certain amount of weight to the fact that they were in the past litigation and that might help them in one way, shape, or form with this action, I would say that shouldn't be provided much weight, if at all, especially considering the fact that the attorneys that are representing Waste Pro this time around, Madam City Attorney, if I'm wrong, correct me, are also separate attorneys than the ones that litigated the prior action?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the
The
question.
attorneys that are representing Waste Pro in this litigation, are they the same attorneys that represented them in the prior litigation?
Yes.
They are, okay. Then I stand corrected. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this topic? I guess what we'll do, if there's not, like we normally do, we'll just go down the line and make our recommendation, and then we will have to have a motion after that. So, Councilmember Long, since you started the discussion, we'll start with you.
Yes, sir, yeah. So I would recommend to engage the law firm of Sheffy Pasadomo.
Councilmember Cummings.
I'm in agreement, Sheffy Pasadoma in Collier County, yes.
Shoemaker.
Shoemaker.
Which is Christopher Stain.
You mean Stain, Christopher Stain?
It's Shoemaker.
Shoemaker.
Firm.
Christopher Stain is with Shoemaker.
Okay.
Shoemaker.
Chevy.
Sheffy. Shoemaker.
Okay.
Jessica.
So that
Jessica's
was-
not here, so it's only the 7 of us voting tonight. She's not participating in remotely.
I have 4 for Cheffy and 3 for Shoemaker Stain.
Okay, we need a motion for that?
Motion to engage the law firm of Sheffy Pasadomo for
Second.
the Waste Pro litigation.
Second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cummings,
Aye.
Gunter,
Aye.
Hayden,
Aye.
Long,
Aye.
Shepherd, Steinke,
Aye.
Welsh,
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, item 9E is personnel actions. We do not have any listed. 9F is petitions to council. Again, we do not have any listed. Item 9G is follow-up items from city management. G1 is our permitting process update. I will turn it over first to Assistant Madam City Attorney.
Yes,
Sorry,
good
City
evening.
Manager.
Matt Grambauer, Special Projects Coordinator, will be giving you an update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Matt Grambo, Special Projects Coordinator. Starting again with inspections this evening. Good news to share on the private provider front. The 3 additional private providers who the city reached out to and requested additional services have agreed to serve the city and will be starting next week. Together, they'll have about 125 additional inspections that they're able to provide us, which will bring our total to about 900 per day throughout the city. So really good news in increasing the number of inspections we're able to complete on a daily basis. And we're really excited for Inspected Incorporated, Beryl Engineering, and Nova Engineering to start immediately next week. On top of that, additional volume, we'll need additional administrative assistance internally within the city to assist with the high volume of data entry tasks. So we're receiving some out of DSD support from their administrative staff to assist with that volume. And as I mentioned during my last update, the city is actively working on developing a virtual final roofing inspection process where we've been having some significant discussions and outlining what that will look like. It'll be very similar to what the city of Tampa currently utilizes for their virtual final roofing inspections. We have 2 questions that we're working through. The transmission process for the photo and affidavits that are required, the high-resolution photos to ensure that the inspection is done properly, as well as staffing estimates and estimated review times that we can provide the industry. Moving over to the permitting process improvements, we're working on 3 things this week. The new mastered single-family residential permit type is in final testing. We have a final testing session tomorrow, and it's scheduled to go live on Monday, so we're moving ahead with that. We've also been doing some significant work with the changes to contractor licensing within the city. After council approved the ordinance repealing the requirements for municipal contractor licensing, we are working to comply with state certification requirements and utilize Energov's ability to verify state certifications. That's a very big project. We're converting 47 different types of local contractor licenses to the state certifications, and also doing some permit reconfiguration work to ensure that we're complying with state law. And then finally, we've been doing ongoing Energo system performance improvements, in especially a review coordinator, working with Tyler Technologies through our new engagement with them, and also developing an Energo best practices guide for new staff members to ensure that all of our staff are on the same page with properly operating within the system. The final topic I'd like to talk about this evening is regarding prioritization and triage, especially in the permit application process as well as inspections. This is a topic of interest that we've received from council. So I'd like to talk about both permit applications and inspections. So through our existing permit application process in Energov, we do have multiple types of functionality that allow us to prioritize and triage different tasks and permit types. This is done through the due date functionality of Energov, and due dates are applied to every single step in the permit application process from intake through issuance. The issue that we've run into is really related to a very similar issue that I've mentioned multiple times up here, the volume of tasks in one section of Energov, permit coordinator, review coordinator in the BLD CSR team. In the short term, we've been doing some out of Energov reporting and systems to identify and prioritize tasks that need attention. That's only a very short-term action, and when we do our long-term solution through the reconfiguration of all of our permit workflows and separate our one big team into multiple teams, we'll be able to utilize additional Energo functionality and be able to achieve some resubmittal priority processing to ensure that resubmittals are acted upon very quickly when they're received by the city, a dedicated single document review team that is able to process final surveys, NOCs, energy calcs, and other single documents that are submitted after an initial permit application is received more quickly, and then also allow us to establish and aim to achieve certain metrics when it comes to timeframes based on permit category. So there's a lot of really good improvements through that overall permit restructuring that will affect our ability to prioritize and triage and give us a little bit more control and flexibility with our work volume. And then finally, moving on to inspections. Our current inspection scheduling process through Energov involves our DSD staff members, our chief building inspector, establishing inspection slots each business day, and those are based on the inspector certification and the availability of our inspectors on a given day. Once those slots are created, there's a cap to them on each day, we are able to, in Energov, open up the inspection dates and allow our contractors to go on to CSS and reserve a inspection time, either their requested date for the inspection or the next available date, which is based on the availability of slots on each day. We also allow our contractors to notify our inspection staff of the possibility of completing multiple inspections during a single visit. So a contractor can schedule a framing inspection in Energov and then also complete a roofing dry-in. It just makes sense. It's one visit, and the same type of inspector can do both types of inspections. So we're also doing that under our current process. The current process allows us a couple benefits. First, it prevents any rolling over of inspections. Once an inspection is scheduled on a given day, it happens on that day and is never delayed until the next day. And it also allows us to maximize our utilization of our inspectors. No matter what the number of inspections that are scheduled on a given day or scheduled to be completed, it's not affected by the fluctuations in demand for a specific type of inspection. However, staff are always considering options to improve our ability to control our work and ensure that we're able to prioritize as needed in a given situation to meet demand. So 2 options here that staff have been discussing: creating additional slot types for inspection scheduling. So rather than having a roofing inspection category that is part of the slots that are developed, you could split that into dry-in, final, 90-pound for a roofing inspection. And there's two real issues with this. First is it's very difficult to accurately determine what the demand is going to be on a given day. We would need to be very, very active in adjusting what the amount would be based on what our estimate of the demand for the specific inspection type would be on a given day. And it would also require very, very regular EnerGov configuration and adjustment work on the ITS and development services end. The other option to increase our prioritization capacity would be to establish some sort of standby system for specific types of inspections in the event of an inspection cancellation. Currently, when an inspection that is scheduled is canceled, it opens up that slot so that the next person to apply for a permit or look to schedule an inspection is able to take that slot earlier than what your average next inspection day would be. This could result in a few issues where there's a chain of cancellations and rescheduling, and if we get really close to the date of the inspection, that could cause some underutilization of inspector resources with a missed inspection slot. And there's also some technical challenges within EnerGov with holding the canceled inspection slot and only allowing a specific type of inspection to be rescheduled during that time period. But overall, we are continuing to look at opportunities for triaging and more control over the types of inspections that we're able to establish for a given day. And we'll continue to look for options and see what we can do to best meet the needs of the community. And with that, I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Steinke.
Matt, thank you for following up on jumping into EnerGov and seeing what its capacity was to establish some type of a triage and prioritization process. I appreciate the quick work on that. I truly believe it will help, and I absolutely understand your positioning on cancellations. I think it gives an opportunity for some of the oopsies that happen. There is no perfect system, and so if there's an inspection that needs to get done and there's a cancellation, we can slide that into and utilize that to keep the train running down the track as best as we can. I think that's a great idea, and the thought that you'd run into a cascading effect of someone jumping into a new spot that then makes another spot empty and again and again and again, I think that would set us up for additional complications. I think you're thinking far enough ahead that would be a great decision in that. So thank you for the work that you're doing there and helping our businesses and our residents get their buildings, whether it's residential or commercial, in operation as quickly as possible. Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to weigh in real quickly as well. Thank you, Matt, for the update and all the hard work you're doing. We appreciate that. We're not exactly where we need to be, but we are surely heading in the right direction. So thank you and staff for all your hard work. One quick item I wanted to ask, and I think you touched on it a little bit. I know one of the problems that we have had, a few individuals have reached out to me, is our paper permits and getting that information into the system. Do we have a timeline, you think, on that? And the reason that I asked, the one individual that contacted me, and we were able to help him, was it was hard to get the documentation. A homeowner had a difficult time getting the documentation to show the insurance company to get reimbursed for the repair because we couldn't get that information online. Now, of course, they can come to City Hall. I know we'll help them, but just in the future, do you have a timeline for that?
So our current process is when a permit is closed, it is supposed to be pulled from our big boxes full of paper permits that are arranged by permit number, so it's in the order in which they were applied for. The early permit numbers are the ones that were applied for immediately after Hurricane Ian and the city was reopened. Once the permit is closed, the process is to scan that document and then input that information into EnerGov with a single attachment with the document, the actual paper permit. There may be a little bit of a delay between the closure of the permit and it being scanned and then input into EnerGov. It's a very time-intensive task, and there's a total of about 5,622 permits. But I'll work with DSD staff and see where they are on the timeline for that process, and work to ensure that as soon as the permit's closed, we get that information as soon as possible to not negatively affect homeowners' ability to file insurance paperwork.
Okay. Thank you very much for that update.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay. We will move on to the next topic for an update from City Management, Hurricane Ian recovery update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just before I get started with this update, just to give you an update that there is about a 10-acre brush fire up in the near Cetus El Dorado. We're kind of behind Bubba's Roadhouse. No structures are threatened at this time, but we have a number of crews out there working on that. So if anybody hears about smoke or what's burning, that's what it is. As far as the hurricane update goes, we'll go over some stuff for debris, but just an update that myself and Amy and some other staff today met with FEMA to talk about direct housing. So right now, FEMA has approved 127 residents here in the city for direct housing. I think across the county, it's somewhere around the neighborhood of 1,500. And so they're working with those individuals, first trying to get those units onto the private properties in a driveway. Is our primary goal, and then we are working through a number of options, one of them being the RV park up on Birchville Road, being very close to seeing that come to fruition as a site for that direct housing. Just a few things we've got to get through to make sure that it's a safe location, but we are actively working through that and making it a priority to get those in place as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, Terry Schweitzer, Solid Waste Manager. Just a brief update on debris removal operations. As we know, the 28th was the last day of right-of-way collection. Ceres collected 1,964,197 cubic yards. I'm going to be working on what that represents per mile, per household, to get a context. Right now, the canal debris is still in operation. They've removed so far 375,000 cubic yards as of today. Marine-based debris removal is in progress in zones 2, 4, 11, 12, and they will be moving to zones 1, 8, and 9 next. They have been doing the land-based debris removal from the canals in work zones 2, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, and they anticipate to begin canal debris removal operations in zones 1, 3, and 6 next week. And they are still on track to complete at the end of April. Commercial debris is still ongoing, as well as the gated communities and the folks that submitted the private property debris removal to the state. They have not given us an end date yet, although typically as they get close to 6 months from landfall, somewhere around there is probably when it'll end. Waste Pro is back to full service. The bulk site by the North RO plant is back to full service, and they are doing the Ceres is doing restoration of the debris staging area. Right now, they're focusing on the southwest C&D site and the southwest resident C&D drop-off site. And with that being said, I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. I'll open up any questions regarding solid waste. The only question I have, I just want to make sure our communications department continues to get that message out there that we're no longer, picking up debris. Because there's a few areas I ride around the city, I still see some debris there. So we just want to make sure the homeowners know it either falls back to our standard solid waste pickup policy, or they'll have to take the initiative upon themselves to get that removed debris. So I think communication will be key to get that information out there.
I'll work with the communications department, get some more messaging out.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate the update. All right, we will move on to item G3, and I think this was on the behalf of our city clerk's office, request for additional regular meeting on March 22nd, 2023.
Yes, Your Honor. In preparation for March meetings, we noticed that there was an additional need for one on March 22nd, beginning at 4:30 in council chambers. One factor had to do with a presentation given at the Committee of the Whole meeting on the 18th of January that talked about the resolution to have the public hearing for final assessments and assessment roles. After reviewing that date, I noticed as well that there's a large gap between the last voting meeting in March, currently of March 15th, all the way to April 5th. So there are numerous benefits if it's allowable on council's calendar.
Okay. So you're requesting to add a regular meeting tour schedule on March 22nd, 2023, which would start at 4:30 PM.
Yes, sir.
All right, and I would assume that you're going to need a motion for that, to add that as, and.
Motion to add the March 22nd meeting to the council schedule.
Councilmember- And you got a second, and Councilmember Welsh.
Yeah, looking at the calendar, we have a committee of the whole meeting scheduled for that day as well, so we'd be doubling the meetings. Is that the intent?
In the
Or-
backup, I did mention that I'm not looking or asking to cancel the cow. This would be an addition, and it would be up to council's discretion what we do with that earlier meeting.
Now, I know we normally have our council meetings at 4:30 PM. Is there, does council have any issue maybe moving that up to 2? Or so?
Are we talking about only one item being on this agenda?
So I would need to do a few moments of research on that. It being that it's the assessments and the assessment rules, they may have a city expectation that it's an evening meeting so the public can speak at it.
Okay, we just,
I mean, I'll withdraw the motion for now, and we'll come back to it.
well, if staff thinks it's in the best interest to keep it at 4:30, I think that's what we'll do.
All right.
So-
Well, I noticed the 29th, we have a joint youth council workshop, which would have been the other day for this, which would be a regular council meeting, so I don't know if.
I
that-
think there's some time restraints for this particular item, is that correct?
The recommendation for the date was emphasized from the finance department. I'm not sure if the finance director is present.
Okay. Mr. Mason, you're in the spotlight. Anything for you.
Thank you. Mark Mason, Financial Services Director. As I understand it, the bids that we have for North One West will expire on the 29th, so that's the reason why we've asked for the 22nd.
Okay.
I have no problems with doing 2 meetings in a day, so.
Okay.
As long as it's a Wednesday, I'm good. I just wanted to.
All right, any other discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long? Shepherd? Aye. Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, item 10 is ordinance resolutions. 10A is public hearing. First one on the list is ordinance 106-22. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 106-22, an ordinance providing for the annexation of 2 parcels of land lying in the west 1/2 of the northeast 1/4 of the northwest 1/4 of Section 21, Township 44 South, Range 23 East, Lee County, Florida. Said parcels of land being more particularly described herein, providing for redefinition of city boundaries, providing for City of Cape Coral Fire Department and utility services, providing for severability and an effective date.
Due to the nature of this matter, anyone wishing to speak or provide testimony must be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chad.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. For the record, Chad Boyko, Principal Planner with the City's Planning Division. This is Ordinance 106-22. This is a privately initiated annexation request. The applicant for this is Walco Leasing. It's two pieces of property that are on the south side of Pine Island Road. It's a little over 15 acres in size. It has sole frontage on Pine Island Road. It's surrounded on all 4 sides by properties that are currently within the City of Cape Coral. Upon annexation, this would be placed into the transition area of the urban services boundary, meaning that there would be utilities available or nearby to the site. And once again, they're asking to annex these 2 properties into the City of Cape Coral. Some quick findings of fact. The site is currently undeveloped, and as we mentioned, it's 2 pieces of property. There's surrounding development of non-residential to the west and to the north. There are some single-family homes that are still within Lee County that are a little ways to the south and to the east. It's adjacent to the City of Cape Coral on all 4 sides, and then the applicant has stated a desire to develop commercial uses within this property. The site would be serviced by a City of Cape Coral for the sewer, and this still does fall within the Greater Pine Island Water Association boundary for water service. So whatever agreements for water would have to be taking place between the applicant and Chippewa. And in order for this to be fully developed and have full entitlements, you would need a future land use map amendment and a rezoning application in order to bring this into full compliance with the City of Cape Coral's Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code. So staff's recommendation of this annexation is approval, and I'm here for any further questions.
Thank you. I now open public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 106-22? Please come forward.
Good evening, Linda Miller, Vice President of Avalon Engineering. Chad did a wonderful job. I really don't have anything else to add except for the owner of the property also owns the property to the west and is purchasing the property to the south to combine them all together. Those properties in the west and south are already in the city of Cape Coral, and these are the only two parcels that are in Lee County still. So we're requesting an annexation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on ordinance 106-22, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 106-22?
Motion to approve 106-22.
Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cummings?
Aye.
Venter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Next one on the list is ordinance 1-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 1-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral official zoning district map of all property within the limits of the City of Cape Coral by rezoning property lying in Section 16, Township 44 South, Range 23 East, Lee County, Florida, as more particularly described herein, from commercial CA-1, a Lee County designation, to commercial corridor zone. Property is located at 2301 Southwest Pine Island Road, providing severability and an effective date.
This is a quasi-judicial hearing. Anyone wishing to speak or provide testimony must be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank
Chad?
All right, good evening, Mayor, City Council. Once again, for the record, Chad Boyko, Principal Planner with the City's Plan Division. This is ordinance 1-23. This is a privately initiated rezoning application. The applicant for this is CCTC Fee Owner LLC. The location is north of Pine Island Road, west of Chiquita Boulevard. It's a little over 2.5 acres. This is also within the transition area of the urban services boundary, meaning that there are utilities available or will be available in the near future. And then the applicant's request is a rezone from C1A, which is a Lee County zoning designation, to commercial corridor. You can see that it's a landlocked piece of property. It's just to the west of the German American Social Club, and I believe it's roughly north of the Bubba's Restaurant, located along Pine Island Road. The Bubba's Restaurant is still within Lee County. Everything else surrounding this property is within the City of Cape Coral. It's one parcel. It was recently annexed back in 2022. It's undeveloped. It actually shares ownership with the large parcel that is to the north and then to the west of this. So it's sort of like this little missing donut hole that they're looking in order to be able to build out this site. The future land use was recently amended to the Pine Island Road District. As with all annexations, until it's changed by the city, it retains its land use and its zoning designation. So this is sort of that last third piece in order to make this site fully compliant with the city's LDC. And then the applicant states that a future development of a mixed-use project will be on this property when it will be assembled with the properties to the north and to the west. The current zoning indicated in the gray on your screen is the C1A, the Lee County designation, and this will just fill in the commercial corridor at this area. We looked at this per the Land Development Code. This is going to sort of foster some mixed use and commercial development. The existing uses are really limited to the social club and a restaurant to the south, but all of the uses that are along the Pine Island Road corridor are either commercial, mixed use, or multifamily, and this will kind of add to that same trend. Staff finds that it meets most of the siting criteria for the corridor district, and we've brought this before the hearing examiner, and she recommended approval of this, and staff does as well. I'm here for any further questions.
Thank you. I now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 1-23, please come forward.
Hi again, Linda Miller, Vice President of Avalon Engineering. This is the third time I've been up in front of you guys on this particular parcel. It is going to be combined with 130 acres to the north and west for Cape Coral Town Center. We have submitted plans for infrastructure design and for plating. So we request approval of this zoning so we can combine and bring you a nice town center on the site. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this ordinance? Please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 1-23?
Motion to approve. Second.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to Resolution 35-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Resolution 35-23, a resolution of the City of Cape Coral, Florida, relating to the construction and funding of potable water improvements, describing the proposed North 1 West potable water improvement area and the potable water improvements necessary for the provision of water service therein, estimating the cost of the improvements, establishing the method of assessing the costs and benefits of the improvements against real property that will be specially benefited, establishing a public hearing to consider imposition of the proposed assessments and the method of their collection, directing the publication and mailing of notice of such hearing, directing the preparation of preliminary assessment rolls, directing the provision of notice and certain other matters in connection therewith, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Klingon.
Thank you. Paul Klingon, Director of Capital Improvements. I'd just like to mention this presentation you saw a couple weeks ago, but we have to present it for the initial assessment resolution. This will cover 3523 for the water, also 3623 for the wastewater, and 3723 for the irrigation. And I'd also like to introduce Chris Rowe from Bryant, Miller, and Olive. He's our assessment attorney. He did the work on North 2, UEP, and North 1 West. All right, so the outline, we'll be talking about the history of the North 1 West project area, estimated cost, the assessments, financing, and next steps. All right, so UEP history. The extension of the UEP is for water, sewer, and irrigation. It's a citywide project constructed in phases. Primary funding for each is the special assessments. And why do we do these projects? Availability of public-owned and maintained systems. It eliminates potable water wells and septic systems, improves reliability and quality of service. Certainly there's environmental benefits with all our canals. Expands the customer base. So the assessments are prepared pursuant to Home Rule Ordinance. And the water, again, we know the issues, frequency of wells running dry, saltwater intrusion. If we don't extend utilities, South Florida Water Management District may impose aquifer withdrawal restrictions in the future. Wastewater eliminates the need for on-site septic systems. And again, with all our canals, that's important. And FDP may impose on-site septic restrictions in the future. And the irrigation certainly reduces our dependence on fresh water. The majority of the construction of the water, sewer, and irrigation in the city has been paid through UEP assessments. A little more history here, 6, 7, North 2, and North 1 were approved by the council in 2012. And the next phase is the North 1 West UEP. It adopts the same assessment methodology as 6, 7, and North 2. There's two components, the line extension square footage, the CFEC or capital facility expansion charge. The assessments can be paid in full or in annual installments. And the city finances the cost of North 1 West through bonds, which is repaid over time. So the North 1 West project area, we split because of the size with North 1 West and North 1 East. The North 1 West project, there's 6 utilities contracts, and in the east we're proposing 5 utilities contracts when that comes out next year. So here's the construction bids we received. You can see that they range from approximately $24 million for each contract to a high of $48 million for a total of $203 million. Denco was a low bidder, apparent low bidder on contracts 1 and 2. Southwest Utilities was contract 3, Mitchell and Stark contract 4, and Guyman was low on contracts 5 and 6. So the utility construction bids, the $203 million, you can see the breakdown there. I'm not going to read them all, but you can see how it's broken down into the different water, wastewater, irrigation, storm drain, road improvements, fiber optics. This is the entire project cost. So $175 million towards utilities, estimate of $11 million towards for the facilities construction, the one master pump station we need, $28 million for storm drains, roads, and fiber optics. For the total construction cost of $214. Now we add a construction contingency in there. Then we have the construction engineering inspection. That right now is an estimate. And then miscellaneous for design, survey, UEP, admin. So the total number is approximately $250 million for the project cost. So here's the breakup that goes to the 116 to the line extension assessment, which is that square footage. $100 million is for the CFEC, and utilities pays for that. Then $16 million for transportation, $12 million for stormwater, and $4.5 for fiber optics. North 1 assessments, again, same methodology as 6, 7, and North 2, and the line extension or land area and square footage is based on equivalent parcel method. Then we have and that's primarily for collection and distribution. Then the capital facility expansion charge, CFEC, is for treatment and transmission. So this gives you, this table here shows you an idea of where we are with the EPs, equivalent parcels, and then the total parcels. And certainly the EPs are always more than the parcels. And here's a breakdown of the percentage of parcel sizes, and about 98% are less than 1.9. You can see certainly the majority of the parcels at 68% are 1 EP or 10,000 square feet. All right, so here was the costs and the breakdown for the water, sewer, and irrigation for the land area assessment for a total of $26,617, and the CFEC total, which is fixed, is the $6,750 for a total of $33,367. And you've seen this table before. We did a comparative analysis of going back to Southwest 1 for the percentages, and you can see they range from 6.3 to 8.3% of the average sale price at the time during the city. We expanded on that and took a look specifically in the North 1 West area, and as of January 4th, the average was $427,000 for a home, and prior to that, the last 120 days at that point in time, you can see the average was $371,000 with a sold price of $365,000. So we ran the percentages of the assessment to that value of the sale of the home, and you can see it ranges from the 7.9% to 9.1%. And we also took a look to see what the past UEPs from Southwest 1 on were and did a present worth analysis. And you can see that North 1 West at $33,367 is a little less than Southwest 4 and 5. And you can see the other UEP areas and those costs. And again, this is the square footage assessment and the CFEC. And just wanted to also point out here that also the homeowner is responsible for the typical plumber's connection for water, sewer, and irrigation. So at this time, I will turn it over to Mark Mason for the financial end.
Thank you, Paul. Mark Mason, Financial Services. There's a number of different ways that we end up paying for the assessments, so there's like 3 different parts to this. So we have the city-owned property or the government and government-owned properties, and then we have the institutional properties, and then we have the privately owned properties, which would be your homeowners, your business owners, et cetera. So I'm going to go through the exemptions for the government parcels first. Within our resolution, we generally exempt government-owned properties. However, they still need to be paid for. And so in general, the city of Cape Coral will pick up the cost associated with the government-owned properties. And so whatever the assessment is, regardless of what the size of the property is, there's going to be an assessment for every single parcel within the North 1 West area, and any that are government-owned, we will pay that cost. We also have institutional properties, and there's a list of institutional properties here. These are the State of Revenue classification codes that the property appraiser uses in order to identify what these institutional properties are. With respect to these, we'll also pay a portion of these, not full cost, but definitely a portion of them. Generally, it works out to approximately 85% of the total assessment cost that we would pay, while these institutional properties would pick up the remaining 15% on their tax bills. And actually, that's what I just talked about here was, what we do with the institutional properties, and we would make these annual contributions annually. This is the ones that we don't generally pay for up front, because an institutional property could potentially become a non-institutional property at any point in time during the terms of the assessment. So we also have another group of properties, but these are generally homeowner properties they're close to an area that, and they're prohibited from connecting to the irrigation system. And if I remember correctly, they're very close to a well, and there's the potential of contamination of the irrigation system, so we don't allow them to connect. And so for the term of the assessment and that they are not able to connect, we will pay that annual assessment for them. But in most cases, we actually pay up front and then we collect back if they ever become able to connect to the irrigation system. So I wanted to walk through these through with you a little bit to understand that for the government properties as well as the irrigation prohibited connection properties, the total amount of those assessments today is $7,606,000. We talked about this briefly the last time we came before you in, I think it was January, and earlier this month, right? We talked about earlier this month? And we talked about the fact that we could prepay this as part of the prepayment of the assessment, or as we did in apparently 6, 7, and North 1, we would pay for these over the term of the assessments. The default is 30 years. I'm not sure that I would recommend paying for it over that period of time, but if you did, we give you the amount that you would end up paying if you amortize these over that period. For the institutional properties in the middle, we would be amortizing that about $8,000 a year. The total amortized amount over the course of the 30 years would be $253,740. Now, we're not asking you to make a decision tonight. We have plenty of time before we actually have to make a prepayment, but we will come back before you and either recommend that we make the prepayment today in order to save the interest cost over a period of time, or we would amortize that over the same period. So the financing options and the payment options associated with North 1 West, this is the same thing that we've done for every assessment area for the last 20 some odd years. There's an initial prepayment period that is going to be established from March 2023 through 9/30/2023. So assuming that the City Council approves this assessment on March 22nd, then the initial prepayment period would begin immediately thereafter. Beginning on October 1, 2023 through 7/31/2024, we would do the adjusted payment period. The adjusted prepayment period takes into account the cost of financing for the period of time between when we actually take out the financing through the first billing, which we're estimating on November 2024. So we're looking at three options that a homeowner can select. They can select either a 20-year payback period, a 25-year payback period, or a 30-year payback period, with 30 years being the default. So to give you an idea of what the initial prepayment is, there's no financing cost associated with the initial prepayment period, and so a property owner would pay the full amount of $33,367 up front, and they would have no financing costs, and they would be done with regard to the assessment until such time as they're required to connect. I believe I sent you out, there was a question the last time we provided this information to you about what the prepayments were on a percentage basis for the last, I want to say, 5 assessment areas. I sent you out that information this morning to give you an idea of what that is. And it's different with each assessment area depending on what the dollar value of the assessments were, but I cannot give you an idea of why it's higher in one assessment area and lower in another assessment area. It's just those are the amounts that have been prepaid in the past. For the adjusted prepayment period, again, this is when you take into account financing costs for the period of when we would estimate that we're taking out the financing for the program beginning in September. Then it would take you all the way through the first payment period in November, and the overall adjusted prepayment period during that period of time, if you paid off the assessment, would be $35,931, which is about $1,500 more than the regular assessment. So we have, again, we're looking at providing the option of choosing one of 3 financings, and you can choose it any which way you wanted to. You could do sewer longer, but we're offering a 20-year term, and the estimated total cost that would be on the tax bill at the current financing, at the current proposed rates, at the current everything, assuming nothing changes between now and the time that it goes on your tax roll, it would be $4,365. At the same time, we have a 25-year program, and it would be $3,991. Again, assuming nothing changes, this takes into account all the costs associated with the annual payment. And we would also have a 30-year, which is the default, again, program. So during the course of the time that you're making a choice, if you make no choice, it'll automatically revert to a 30-year term. And in this case, it would be $3,740 annually for 30 years. To give you an idea, the comparison between the two, it's about, I want to say it's $250 between each one of them, and between, on a monthly basis, on an annual basis. So from 20 years to 30 years overall, it's about a $500 difference between the two. At the same time, we also provide a hardship program that residents can apply for on an annual basis. We do have a method for the deferral of these annual payments. The city would make the payments. They would be, the properties would be lien for those payments until such time as they're able to make the payments. This is applicable to the amortized method only, so there's no hardship to make a prepayment on the initial prepayment, essentially. It's only on the amortized method with regard to the hardship program. It's based on income qualification, and you do have to apply annually. Very little different than some of the programs that the property appraiser has with regard to exemptions, where you have to apply annually for some of the exemptions with regard to property taxes. And so in this case, you would also qualify annually as you go through this particular program. In addition, we have the Community Development Block Grant. When we get to the point where there's to connect utilities to the property, CDBG, we normally work with CDBG for them to set aside a certain dollar value annually to support low-income families being able to connect the meter to the home. And it also pays for the septic abandonment fee and the water meter fee as well. There are certain qualifications that are associated with this program, of which we kind of give you an idea of what they are. You have to be income qualified, they're owner occupied, also homesteaded, and you need to be current on your monthly mortgage payments. So the next steps, we briefly talked about this earlier. We have a homeowners informational meeting on March 8th that has been scheduled here in City Council. We've done the North 2 meetings here in City Council. I think they did the Southwest 6-7 meeting here in Council. We believe that there should be a sufficient space to handle whatever it is that we need to do with regard to this informational meeting here. On March 22nd, which you graciously approved tonight, to have the final hearing for the final assessment resolutions and the assessment rolls. At the same time, we would bring you the resolutions to approve the construction contracts, as well as the resolution to approve the construction engineering and inspection contract. And in April 2023, assuming all of that is approved, we would give the notice to proceed for construction. There's also a step that's not on here, so the financing step, as I briefly told you previously. We are looking at September to actually issue the debt for the entire project. We will know by then, generally, the prepayments that we're going to receive. From a closing standpoint, we likely wouldn't close on the bond until after 9/30 to make sure that we've covered all the prepayments that would come through on 9/30, but that's about the time that we would actually close on, and we would issue the debt for this construction. Last meeting, just real quick, we had some conversations about the notice that we send out, assuming that the City Council approves these resolutions tonight. And by the way, we're talking about all three resolutions that are on there tonight. Assuming that you approve these, where the notice is already at the printer, getting ready to be printed. There were some suggestions and some things that we talked about. Yes, unfortunately, the assessment looks fairly legal, as well as it should. But there are numerous things that we do put in there with regard to the documentation and the notification of the information that we put out. Within the letter, we do, in fact, have a section in there that talks about why we're doing this. We also have a Q&A section within the documentation that, again, also provides an explanation of why we do the assessments and the benefit that will accrue to the property owner in the assessment area. At the same time, we also are in the process of putting together a nice brochure, unbeknownst to me that had already been worked on prior to our meeting last time. But we are in the process of putting that together. Our communications folks have done a bang-up job on the document. It looks good. It'll be like a little pamphlet that we'll also be providing and sending out to the property owners to give a little bit more information that may not be included or may be difficult to find in this particular package. As soon as we have the information and we're able to print at least one of these to kind of give you an idea what they look like, we'll provide a copy to each one of the council members so you at least have an idea of what has been sent to each one of the property owners in the North 1 West area. When the pamphlets are done, we'll give you a copy of the pamphlets as well. They're a great informational document, but we did want to make sure that you understood that we haven't been sitting back idly. We do have the information that's available for folks. And we're here for any questions.
Thank you. I now open up public input. Is there anyone wishing to speak on Resolution 35-23? Please come forward. Seeing none, public input is now closed. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 35-23?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Did I hear a second?
Second.
Bobby second.
Okay. And I'll open up for council discussion. Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. Three things. One, in the presentation, there was a line item in coming up with the total costs that was called construction contingency. Is that just like a general fudge factor? I'd see it represents about 5% of the costs. And if it's not just general fudge, could you give us an example of what those dollars would be used for?
Yes. Let's see. Talking about, yes, with all our contracts, we have a construction contingency. It's for differing site conditions, unknowns that we didn't anticipate, added value to the project. So it's a big number, but it's certainly a big project. So that's something typically we do is put that 5% in.
Okay, thank you. And then the three entities that we would potentially fund, the government properties, the institutional properties, and the irrigation exempt properties, have those costs already been parlayed into any budgeting, or is that will that come into the 23-24 budgeting process that's about to begin?
It was not included in the fiscal year 23 budget. To answer the question, at the time when we were building the assessment, we weren't sure exactly when the initial assessment would end, or the initial prepayment would end, but it's right around September. So as long as we've done something, or we've done something by that time, if we elect to prepay, then we're ready to go. But there's going to be no other payments that might happen in 2023. If we elect to go with the annual payments from that point forward, then we will budget for those annual payments clearly annually.
Beginning in 2024?
Beginning in 2025, actually, because the first bill won't be due until November of 2024. So fiscal year 2025 would be the first year that we would actually budget for the annual payments.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, as you know, I've been trying to be involved in trying to find some additional funding that might help defray some of these costs for the citizens as it relates to the February 22 meeting that we've just put in place. Is that date significant at all as far as when we would know if we did have additional dollars that we could apply towards this, where it would be done as a revision of the numerics of this, or regardless if we were to come up with that, would it be dealt with as on a rebate basis versus a recalculation basis?
If we know that we have the money absolutely prior to the final assessment hearing, that we would adjust the final assessment itself. If we have the money, if we know we have the money. In other words, we've entered into an interlocal agreement, we've signed a contract, we've done something. We would definitely amend the final assessment.
And what date would that be, Mark?
March 22nd.
That would be March 22nd. Okay.
And if something comes in after that, then we would certainly amend, the assessment, and we would obviously change things. But if somebody had already prepaid any time during that period, we would rebate whatever the delta is between those two.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Welsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just doing some numbers and looking at the assessment and what's coming forward. It seems to me that the city is offering about 7% interest on a
6.5%, actually.
6.5%,
Correct.
which is prime right now, right? Correct? That's about what the
Actually,
national
prime's a
average-
little bit less than 6.5%, but for us, it's important for us to ensure that the difference between what we're looking at putting in place today and what we're going to be issuing debt at some time in the future is that we don't get caught short-handed.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be able to, we don't want to have to come back and redo the assessment because we were wrong in the overall estimates of our interest. But at the same time, if we issue debt and the cost of interest is less than what we forecasted, everybody benefits from that because the overall assessments will be less.
Correct. And no one is tied to using the city's debt service at 6.5% to pay for these assessments. At any time, you can pay them off without any sort of penalty, correct?
You can pay off the assessment with no interest costs between March 23rd and September 30th.
Let's just saying I don't have the financing available for this $33,000 assessment this year.
Correct.
But next year, an uncle passes away and leaves me $25,000, and I decide I want to pay off my assessment. I'm not locked into paying those interest rates over the next 30 years, am I, or am I able to
If you
pay
pay
them
it
all?
off, you'll pay it off whatever the payoff amount is on that date.
Okay,
So it's, once we start the actual assessments, the principal amount will go down 1/30th every single year, but there will still be some interest cost associated with that. So we have the initial prepayment, then we have the adjusted prepayment period, which has an interest cost to it.
I
And so if you pay that during the adjusted prepayment period, then you're done. You're finished. There's nothing more associated with the assessment for you.
I understand. I just wanted to make that clear and on the record, because I've heard some sayings that we're charging people $80,000 or $90,000 for an assessment on their house, but what we're really doing is they're just paying interest over time, and there is no prepayment penalty for them to pay off when they don't have to take the loan from the city for this. They can go out and find private financing if they chose to take a
Absolutely.
different term.
There is no prepayment penalty associated with paying off this assessment early at any time.
Okay, I just want to make it very clear on my decision here that we're not charging a $100,000 assessment on a home. What we're doing is we're offering financing to a homeowner that might not be able to have it, and that the assessment's actually $33,000 or $35,000, depending on when this goes in. So, thank you for your answers.
We'll know what the interest rate is in September.
Yep.
It could be lower, it could be higher. Well, it won't be higher, that's for sure. But I don't expect it to be higher unless something really, really nutty happens in the next 6 months.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cummings.
Yes, Mark, can you let me know out there in this area of the UEP where we're going to be placing everything in the Northwest, do you have the percentage of single properties, double properties, and triple properties?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I
On
please
page
get that?
17 of the assessment, it's right here. We have 68.1% of the parcels in that area are 1 EP or 10,000 square feet, which is the required minimum size to build a house on.
Okay, so let's see here, the 2.0 to 2.9, and that's looking like at a double lot close to 2.5 to triple, correct?
Yes, the double lot, which would be 2, 1.1 to 1.9, 27.7% would be the 15,000 square feet, I'm sorry.
So we would, let's use that number. So we'll take that double lot, 2.0, 2.9, and we're averaging 34,000, so wouldn't we double that, and that would be $68,000?
No. The assessment is what would be doubled, so it would be 26,000 times 2 plus 6750.
Okay, well,
I'm sorry.
repeat that?
Let's see, what page do you have that on? You messed up my whole presentation. There you go. So on the next page, on page 18, the estimated total would be $26,617. That's the assessment for one 10,000 square foot lot. So if you have a 2-lot or a 4-lot site or 2 EPs, 20,000 square feet, it would be 2 times 26,617.
That's what I just said, so you would have the double, and then you would change
Correct.
that.
And
Yeah,
then
that's what I just said, yes.
The 6750, which is the capital facility expansion charge, the impact fee, stays the same regardless of the lot size.
Okay. So on the double lot, you're probably looking right around $68,000, $70,000, correct? Right around there? I mean, I'm not looking for accurate figures, but,
Actually, 57,000, 58,000.
okay. And that's not
Sorry.
including I know the 6.5%. I guess my point to this is, out in Northwest, there is a lot of double and triple lots because 5 years ago, they got that land pretty inexpensive. And so what I'm asking is if we can hold off for a little while until we get an opportunity to see what monies are available for the residents of Northwest.
Actually, right now, it shows that we have 65 parcels that are double lots out of all of these 3,811 parcels.
Oh, that's,
Sorry. It is 65, I
68,
get it.
yeah,
Yes, I
it's-
understand. I
that's
just,
A lot of families there, if you ask me.
okay, so if we hold off and money comes in, absolutely, we'll go back out and rebid. If it's federal money, it will increase the cost of the assessment, because the things that we have to put in the bidding requires contractors to actually do a lot more for the federal money. And that's okay. We're fine with that, if that's what it is that we want to do. But we would expect that, and we are not seeing the cost of construction coming down in underground utilities today.
So how many homes total in the double and triple lots are we looking at?
The
'Cause your
double
triple,
lots,
you're looking at 100.
total right here, double parcels is 65, and anything above that, it looks like 21. So total, we're talking about 86 parcels. Now, I don't know exactly what, 5 EPs is 50,000 square feet or more, so there's quite a few parcels that are going to be fairly large, but some of those parcels we own.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke.
I can help a little bit, and some of it has to do with just nomenclature. 1 EP, the equivalent parcel, actually on our plat map, is 2 lots. You have to have 2 lots to build a house on. That's what gives you the 10,000 square feet. When people say I have a triple lot, it doesn't mean that they can put 3 houses on it. They just have some extra land. And so when the allocation of cost is out there, to exaggerate, to make a point, if you've got one landowner with a piece this big and one landowner with a piece this big, they can't pay the same. Because down the road, this person with their land this big, they could sell part of it off, and that doesn't even have an assessment attached to it yet. So by identifying and separating the capital improvement cost, which is the same regardless of the number of locations of delivery, that remains constant. But the more lots that you have, the more equivalent parcels that you have, then you have to contribute more of the cost to that, because you're a larger participant in the program potentially. But the size of the facility and the size of bringing the utilities to the land remains the same. But if you have more potential, then you contribute more towards the cost. Am I off base in any way?
No, as a matter of fact, I was telling Mr. Klingon that we could use you.
I'm a little busy.
Okay. No worries.
It's
Sorry.
twice the money.
Appreciate that. No. That explanation is absolutely true. It's, when you're generally speaking, we used to actually talk about an equivalent residential unit or equivalent parcel as 5,000 square feet, and then I think at 6-7 they changed it to 10,000 square feet. So we would always talk about the 3-lot site or the 4-lot site, and as opposed to, now we're dealing with 1 EP at 10,000 is 2 lots, and we understand that, but it's not generally known anymore about how that actually works. Yeah. But so thank you very much.
Many people don't understand that when they buy a lot somewhere,
right,
if they're going to build on it, they really bought 2 lots.
Correct.
If they bought 1 lot, they're not building on it.
That's how it was originally platted here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, any other discussion? Madam City Clerk, I think we have a motion and a second on the floor. Could you call the roll, please?
Cummings?
Yes.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to Resolution 36-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Resolution 36-23, a resolution of the City of Cape Coral, Florida, relating to the construction and funding of wastewater improvements, describing the proposed North 1 West wastewater improvement area and the wastewater improvements necessary for the provision of wastewater therein. estimating the cost of the improvements, establishing the method of assessing the costs and benefits of the improvements against real property that will be specially benefited, establishing a public hearing to consider imposition of the proposed assessments and the method of their collection, directing the publication and mailing of notice of such hearing, directing the preparation of preliminary assessment rolls, directing the provision of notice and certain other matters in connection therewith, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. I believe staff has pretty much made their presentation on this one.
That's correct, Mayor. The presentation that was given by Mr. Klingon and Mr. Mason was to cover all three of these resolutions related to the water, sewer, and irrigation.
Okay. Turn the page. So I will open up public input. Is there anyone wishing to speak on resolution? This is 36-23, right, Madam City Clerk? Please come forward. Seeing none, public input is now closed. Is there a motion to approve resolution 36-23?
Motion to approve.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to resolution 37-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Resolution 37-23, a resolution of the City of Cape Coral, Florida, relating to the construction and funding of irrigation water improvements, describing the proposed North 1 West irrigation water improvement area and the irrigation water improvements necessary for the provision of irrigation water service therein, estimating the cost of the improvements, establishing the method of assessing the costs and benefits of the improvements against real property that will be specially benefited, establishing a public hearing to consider imposition of the proposed assessments and the method of their collection, directing the publication and mailing of notice of such hearing, directing the preparation of preliminary assessment rolls, directing the provision of notice and certain other matters in connection therewith, and providing an effective date.
I will thank you. And I'm sure with this resolution as well, like the other previous two, staff has already presented their comments. Okay, I'll now open up public input. Is there anyone wishing to speak on resolution 37-23? Please come forward. Seeing none, public input is now closed. Is there a motion to approve resolution 37-23?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to item 10B, introductions. Ordinance 13-23 is B1. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 13-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral official zoning district map of all property within the limits of the City of Cape Coral by approving a mixed-use planned unit development entitled Bimini Square, including rezoning property described as parcels of land lying in Block 87, Tract A, and Block 93, Cape Coral Unit 5, and Block 91, Cape Coral Unit 2, Part 3, as more particularly described herein, from the mixed-use Bimini zone to a mixed-use planned unit development, and approval of a master concept plan for a mixed-use development. Property located south of Cape Coral Parkway and west of Sunset Court, providing for conditions of approval, providing severability, and an effective date. The public hearing will be February 15th, 2023.
Okay, is there any council or staff discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 15-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 15-23, an ordinance amending ordinance 84-05 as amended by ordinance 60-13, which approved a planned development project in the City of Cape Coral, Florida, entitled South Winds Commerce Park, on property described as a replat of lots 22 and 23, Block 1548, as shown on the plat of Cape Coral Unit 17, recorded in Plat Book 14 at pages 23 through 38 of the Public Records of Lee County, Florida, together with a portion of Sections 5 and 8, Township 44 South, Range 24 East, a subdivision located in the City of Cape Coral, Lee County, Florida, as more particularly described herein, property located along Stonecrest Lane between Pondella Road and Northeast 6th Street, approving the removal of property described as Lot 15 in the Southwind Commercial Center subdivision, as more particularly described herein, from the planned development project, providing for findings of fact and conclusions of law, providing for action on request and conditions of approval, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be February 15th, 2023.
Is there any council or staff discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 6-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 16-23, an ordinance providing for the release of permanent utility easements of a portion of Block 62A as more particularly described herein, authorizing the mayor to execute a release of said easement, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be February 15th, 2023.
Any council or staff discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 52-22. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 52-22, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from commercial/professional to multifamily land use for property described as lots 12 through 16, block 3100, unit 62, Cape Coral subdivision, property located at 1917 Southwest Santa Barbara Place, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be February 15th, 2023.
Any council or staff discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 11, reports. Councilmember Cummings, report.
No.
Councilmember Hayden, report.
No report.
Councilmember Long.
No report.
Councilmember Shepherd.
No report.
Councilmember Stankey.
I would like to go on the record as saying that I was very appreciative of our retreat last week. I think the presentations that were arranged for us and the way that they were delivered to us and the availability of the question and answer gave me, as a member of council, the ability to be better prepared for decisions that need to be made, and I was highly appreciative of the opportunity to discuss those in a way that met our sunshine rules, and we'll look forward to additional workshops like that in the future.
Thank you. Councilmember Welsh, report.
No report.
All right, just two quick things for me. On January 30th, myself and the fire chief, Chief Lamb, we met with Lee County officials. One of the priorities that I have is to make sure that we have the adequate ambulance service here in city of Cape Coral. So we had an open dialogue with them with expanding our ambulance service. I want to thank Chief Lamb for attending that particular meeting, and I know we will have additional dialogue in the future with ourselves and the county, since the county does provide that service to our residents. So it was a very productive meeting to start with and move forward from there. Also, as a guest speaker at the Horizon Council Foundation, the Industrial Industry Appreciations Awards. So myself, I think Councilmember Long was there, and Councilmember Hayden as well. So it was a great opportunity to recognize some businesses here in Lee County, and that was a great event to attend. Madam City Attorney, report.
I have no report.
And Madam Assistant City Manager, report.
No report.
Okay. Then time and place of future meeting. We have a committee of the whole meeting that is scheduled for Wednesday, February 8, 2023, 9 a.m. here at Council Chambers. We also have a regular meeting of the Cape Coral City Council scheduled for Wednesday, February 15th, 2023, at 4:30 p.m. here in Council Chambers. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.